There are 6 of you in the apartment. 6 strangers touring one unit, stepping around each other in a kitchen built for one person. You rehearsed a little introduction in the car. 2 sentences. Stable job, quiet tenant, long term. You practiced it twice at red lights. The landlord stands by the door looking at his phone. You deliver your 2 sentences. He nods without looking up. He says, "Applications online. Fees $50." A woman behind you is already saying her 2 sentences. She practiced hers too, you can tell. 6 people auditioning for the privilege of paying this man $1,200 a month, and he has not made eye contact with a single one of them. Rent is the only bill where the seller interviews the buyer. Nobody taught you that. You're about to learn it 7 times. This is how landlords treat you at every income level. Level 1, $18,000. The application economy. At $18,000, you don't shop for apartments. You apply to them. $50 per application, non-refundable. You apply to 4 places in 1 month. That's $200 to be told no 4 times. You are paying strangers to reject you, and the strangers cash the check either way. Every listing has the same sentence. Income must be 3 times rent. 3 times. Rent in your city starts at $1,100. 3 times $1,100 is $3,900 a month. You make $1,500. The math doesn't say try harder. The math says you don't exist. So you find the listings underneath the listings. The basement with 1 window. The room in a house with a landlord who says he prefers cash. The unit where the ad says cozy and the photos are taken from angles that hide something. You tour it anyway. The landlord watches you look at the water stand on the ceiling and says, that's old. That's nothing. You need a guarantor. Someone who makes 80 grand willing to legally attach themselves to your rent. You don't know anyone who makes 80 grand. That's the quiet part of the guarantor system. It doesn't check your income. It checks your family's. Same paycheck, different parents, different outcome. You get a yes, finally, on a studio with a shower that runs lukewarm. 3 months up front. First, last, deposit. You hand over every dollar you have saved in 2 years, and the landlord counts it in front of you. Twice. You don't know it yet, but the counting is the whole relationship. The rule at $18,000? You don't rent a home. You win one. Level 2, $30,000. The 3X wall. You cleared it. Barely. $30,000 qualifies you for exactly the apartments nobody else wants. There's a name for them, and the landlords know it even if they'd never say it. The Landlord Special. Fresh paint over old problems. White walls, gray floors, a stove from 2 decades ago wiped down to look neutral. The faucet in the bathroom drips. You mention it at the viewing. The landlord says, "Easy fix. We'll handle it before move-in." You move in. The faucet drips. You submit a repair request in week 1. Nothing. Week 3, you follow up. He says, "Ordered the part." Month 2, you follow up again. He says, "Guys coming Thursday." No guy comes Thursday. Month 4, you stop asking, and you understand that this was the goal. At $30,000, repairs are not services. They're favors. And favors go to tenants who matter. There's a guy on your floor named Tony. Been in the building 6 years. Same landlord special, 1 floor down. His heater half works. Has half worked for 2 winters. Tony says, you just gotta stay on him. Tony has been staying on him for 6 years. Tony pays his rent on the 1st, every month, in full, and waits for a heater. You realize something watching Tony in the hallway with his space heater from the discount store. The landlord isn't lazy. The landlord is rational. He knows Tony can't afford to move. Moving costs 3 months of cash Tony doesn't have.
So Tony's heater is not a priority because Tony is not a flight risk. The worse your options, the worse your service. Your rent goes up $60 at renewal. The letter says market adjustment. You look up what your unit rents for. It's what you're paying. The market didn't adjust. He did. You sign anyway. He knew you would. You don't know it yet, but the drip in your bathroom is going to teach you more about money than any job you'll ever have. The rule at $30,000? The landlord doesn't price the apartment. He prices your ability to leave.
Level 3, $45,000. The reference check. Something small changes at $45,000, and it changes on the phone. You inquire about a listing on a Tuesday morning. The property manager calls you back the same day. You almost don't answer. You've never gotten a same-day call back in your life. The viewing has 2 people in it, not 6. The landlord asks what you do, and when you answer, he asks a follow-up question, a real one. You are still auditioning, but now you're shortlisted. There's an older man who works maintenance in your building, Walter. Fixes what the landlord approves, shakes his head at what he doesn't. 30 years of buildings. One evening, he's replacing a hallway bulb, and you ask him, half joking, what makes landlords actually respond to people? Walter comes down the ladder. He says, you think they rent to incomes. They don't. They rent to risk. He clicks the dead bulb into his pocket. He says, income is just the easiest risk number to check. But a guy who makes 45 and never misses is safer than a guy who makes 90 and juggles. Lower the risk, and the income matters less. He picks up the ladder. He says, landlords aren't in the apartment business. They're in the sure thing business. Be a sure thing. He carries the ladder down the hall. You stand there under the new bulb. You don't know it yet, but you'll say those words to someone in a stairwell 9 years from now. On-time history? Printed. Reference letter from the current landlord. The same man who never fixed your faucet writes you a glowing letter because you paid like a machine. A folder. A boring, beautiful folder. The next application you submit, you attach the folder nobody asked for. The landlord calls you and says, you're the first applicant who's ever done this. Approved. The rule at $45,000? They don't rent to your income. They rent to your risk. And risk is something you can manufacture. Level 4, $65,000. The flip begins. At $65,000, applications come back approved before your references have even been called. You can feel the current change direction. And then the letter arrives. Rent increase. $140. You've been the perfect tenant for 3 years. Never late, never a complaint, quiet. You call the office, expecting the relationship to matter. The woman is pleasant. She says, you've been wonderful. The increase stands. And then you learn the coldest fact in the entire rental market. Good tenants get raised more, not less, because good tenants stay. The landlord software knows you're reliable. Reliable people hate moving. So reliability, the thing you built, becomes the thing they bill. Your reward for being a sure thing is a bigger invoice, delivered with a compliment. The faucet in this apartment drips too. Different building, same drip. You submit the ticket. 11 days. Better than 4 months? Worse than it should be. You are worth 11 days of drip to this man. That's your tier. You look at the number on the increase letter for a long time, and instead of anger, you feel something more useful. You feel the machine. It was never personal. It's a spreadsheet with your leave probability in one column and your rent in the other. You don't know it yet, but the way out of the spreadsheet isn't loyalty. It's options. The rule at $65,000. Reliability without options is just a subscription they get to reprice. Level 5, $90,000. Leverage.
At $90,000, you do something you've never done before. You apply to 2 buildings at once, and both approve you. 2 approvals. On paper, that's nothing. In your hands, it's the first weapon you've ever held in this market. You go back to the first building and say, "The place on 5th approved me at 80 less with parking included. Can you do anything?" The leasing agent says, "Let me check." You've said those words before at $30,000, and they meant goodbye.
This time, she comes back in 4 minutes with 50 off and the parking. 4 minutes. The same sentence that used to end conversations now starts negotiations. The sentence didn't change. Your options did. You move in. Week 2. The faucet drips. Same drip. 3rd apartment in a row. You'd laugh if it wasn't the whole story of your life in one fixture. You submit the ticket at 9 a.m. The text comes at 10:15. Plumber's there by Thursday. 48 hours. The same repair that took 4 months at $30,000 takes 2 days at $90,000. The faucet didn't change. The plumbing didn't change.
The math changed. At this rent, in this building, you could leave. And everyone in the office knows it. Your deposit comes back from the old place in full, on time, with a note. They know you know the rules now. The rule at $90,000? Nothing gets fixed faster than the apartment of a tenant who can walk. Level 6, $150,000. The courtship. At $150,000, the phone flips completely. You inquire about a unit at 4 p.m., the property manager calls at 4:20 and stands up when you walk in. Stands up. The man at the door of that first viewing never looked up from his phone. This one crosses the lobby with his hand out. Same species.
First month free. Waived amenity fee. We'd love to have you here. The building is applying to you now. There's a gym you'll barely use and a rooftop you'll visit twice, and none of it matters because what you're actually being offered is the thing you never had. Speed, attention, the benefit of the doubt delivered before you ask. You go back to the old neighborhood one Saturday, to the first building, the landlord special. Tony's outside. Same floor, same unit. 7 years now.
The heater finally died last winter, he says. Took them 9 weeks. 9 weeks in winter. Then he asks, quieter, "How'd you get out?" And you hear what the question actually is. You tell him about the folder, the boring file, the 2 applications at once, the sentence. They rent to risk, not income. Tony listens the way people listen when they're finally ready. He says, "That's it." You say, "That's it." You help him print his payment history that week. 6 years, never late. The man has been a sure thing the whole time. Nobody ever told him it was currency. You don't know it yet, but Walter's sentence just completed its journey. The rule at $150,000? The treatment was never about the apartment. It was about how easily you could leave it. Level 7, $300,000. The exit. Here is the last thing the ladder teaches you, and it isn't about renting at all. At $300,000, the final landlord treatment is silence. No landlord, no application, no renewal letter. You buy a place and the whole apparatus, the fees, the folders, the viewings, the auditions, evaporates in one signature. And you discover the strangest thing. You miss none of it, and you understand all of it, because now you're on the other side. Maybe you keep the old condo and rent it out.
And one Tuesday, you're standing by the door of your own unit while applicants tour it, and you feel your phone buzz in your pocket, and you almost check it. Almost. You look up instead. A kid in a pressed shirt is delivering 2 rehearsed sentences. Stable job, quiet tenant,
Long term. You know the speech. You wrote that speech 15 years ago in a car outside a building where a man never looked up. You put the phone away. You ask the kid a real question. The rule at $300,000. The top of the renting ladder is the door out of it. What you do at the door is who you are.
Somewhere right now, someone is sitting in a parked car outside a viewing, rehearsing 2 sentences. Stable job, quiet tenant, long term. There are 5 other cars on the street with 5 other people rehearsing 5 other versions of the same speech. In a minute, they'll all file in and audition for a man who won't look up. If that's you, hear this before you walk in. He is not judging your worth. He is pricing your options. That's all this ever was. Every level of the ladder, the counting, the drip, the increase letter, the 4-minute discount, the manager who stands, every one of them was just the market reading how easily you could walk away and charging you for the difference. So build the thing they actually rent to.
The file, the history, the proof that you're a sure thing. Options are the only landlord language ever written. And the first page of the file starts with the rent you pay on time this month, in silence, while nobody claps. The man at the door isn't looking up. One day, someone at a door will stand when you walk in. The only question is what you'll do when you're the one holding the keys.